What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Larger Sports Stories podcast. We are your hosts, Derek and Chase. Guys, we have a very interesting show, a lot of what ifs and a lot of potential conspiracies going on with some teams across the league. We'll start it off with the Carolina Panthers. So the Carolina Panthers really off to a horrific start in a lot of different ways. And Matt Rule, by multiple reports, has reportedly lost the locker room. News coming out that he is unsure about whether or not if Baker's going to start anymore at this point. Made comments about the wide receiver room and about Christian McCaffrey. And also, I just saw this stat as well, Chase. It was posted by NFL on CBS. Panthers are now 1-26 under Matt Rule in games where they allow 17 or more points. That is very, very bad. Needless to say. It's one of the many teams that we're going to discuss today where it feels like the locker room has pretty much turned on the head coach. What's your take here, man, on Matt Rule and his job security right now?
I was never really high on Matt Rule. Coming out, I always thought that the Panthers would go in a different direction with somebody from the NFL, somebody that had more experience. I know that they had the GM and everybody else in the front office wanted to go after guys like Jim Caldwell, Eric Bieniemy, Brian Flores, guys like that had the pedigree in the NFL and have been around for a while. But Dave Tepper, being the businessman that he is, wanted to go in a different direction and saw how Matt Rule was changing around the Baylor system and how his first year they were bad. And then the second year they ended up taking off and being, a powerhouse for that system. And, Dave Tepper's just like, let's jump on it. And he flew to Matt Rule's house himself and talked to him in person and then offered him the job, when half the front office did not want a guy like that because, a lot of college coaches don't transition to the NFL very well nowadays. And you're right. He's lost the locker room. He's lost interest in a lot of his players. DJ Moore's not happy with the Panthers and the coach. We know that Baker's not playing well. And, Baker had the very big potential with that roster to step in and light it up. But after his shoulder injury, he come back and Matt Rule's just not coaching him up to par. And it's starting to make it look like it was smart for the Browns to get rid of him.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, whether or not you feel a certain way about Matt Rule and about his opinions of the team and his players and things of that nature, it comes down to the fact that the Panthers are not playing well at all, and offensively as well. I mean, defensively, it hasn't been too terrible for them defensively, but this team has way too much talent to not be getting points offensively right now. Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, these boys, you got way too much talent on this offensive roster with Baker Mayfield at the helm to be putting up basically 17 points a game. It's just not the key ingredient to winning games. And right now you're just not winning, and not only, like I mentioned before with the stat, it's in that situation where, unless you completely shut down the team, they're not winning, right? So at the end of the day, that's what's important here is Matt Rule's not winning football games with this team. It seems like they've been taking a giant step back, and that's warranted enough for a coach to be fired, is if they feel like they aren't actually living up to the expectation that is being set, that Carolina thought that they could sneak back into the playoffs and make things work. And right now, Carolina is one of the 3 worst teams in football, or one of the 5 worst teams in football right now, if you look at it from a bunch of different metrics. So, we'll see how that goes.
Doesn't help that you have Ben McAdoo as your freaking offensive coordinator.
Yeah, that was also a terrible coaching hire. It's funny because Matt Rule is the number 1 head coach to be on the chopping block right now for betting odds to be fired. So, very soon that could be something. We're going to talk about some more head coaches here in a few minutes throughout the show. But one other thing before we hop into the other one that we wanted to talk about, we got to head back to Chicago again. And this time there's news coming out of Chicago that Justin Fields is not happy with Chicago. Rumors going around that this relationship between Justin Fields and the Chicago organization is not going to last. We've heard him even call out the Chicago fan base, saying that, they can't be any more upset than what the Bears players are, because they're not the ones that are putting anything. They're not putting in the work. Hi, Junie. At the end of the day, this relationship, Chase, we think that, Justin Fields may not be the Chicago Bears quarterback here very shortly. What's your thoughts on this relationship between Fields and Chicago?
I mean, with him being a rookie under a rookie contract, not a rookie, but being under a rookie contract and everything, who's to say that he's got any leverage in this matter, especially with how bad, he's been in Chicago, but you can't really blame it all on him. But, I think Ryan Poles is a guy that wants to do what's best for the Chicago Bears. And the fact that he said that Roquan Smith is only worth a certain amount of money and wasn't willing to pay him already set, a lot of players on edge, because they're like, wow, we're willing to get rid of a guy like Roquan Smith. You're willing to let him walk and not pay the man. What's going to happen when it comes time for our contracts to be up and everything? And they are completely doing Justin dirty. They're not giving him any offensive line help, not giving him any weapons to work with. Darnell Mooney, like you said before the show started, is a wide receiver 3 on most teams. I think he's a wide receiver 2 at best. But, bottom line is Justin's not happy with the way that Chicago is, building the organization. And, they are setting him up for failure. I think that the best option for him is to request a trade, get traded out of Chicago, give up some picks to go out and get this guy, because he has so much potential. If he went on a team like the Lions or the Saints, with how loaded their roster is, pairing him back with Chris Olave would help. Hell, even putting him on the Colts, getting a good head coach in there, getting a young quarterback like that would be huge. But yeah, trade for Justin Fields, get him out of Chicago. He definitely needs to be out of there.
Yeah, I love your buddy says, Fields went from a top 3 offense in college to a team that most guys ain't even starting at OSU. He said it himself. Yeah, I mean, that's very true. I mean, very rarely do you see a situation where you were in college and a lot of the guys that you were throwing the football to are better than the receiving corp you have now. I mean, look at it, Chase. I mean, we saw who was Justin Fields throwing the football to. He was throwing it to Garrett Wilson, throwing it to Chris Olave, throwing it to a couple other guys out there. I mean, he had some really big freaking studs. And I could imagine Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave are going to turn into better receivers than what Darnell Mooney is, or what anybody else on that roster is. And Cole Kmet, who, was a very highly regarded tight end coming out of college. And then sure enough, he looks like a tackle nowadays rather than an actual tight end. So, he just does not have any help. It's hard to talk about the development or the evaluating his status when you're talking about the idea that he's on a team that has nothing around him. So, it depends on if somebody wants to take a chance on it. I will say this, it does definitely hurt the fact that Fields has been a lot more vocal over the last few months at his displeasure of this team. He was talking about, again, the lack of talent on the team. He's talking trash about the fan base. Obviously, he's very upset with how the GM has put this roster together. And you made a good point. When you talked about the Roquan Smith thing, it wasn't the fact that it wasn't the fact that he wasn't going to give him the contract that he wanted. It ultimately came down to how the business deal was done. Taking it to social media the way that it did and taking it to the media, saying that, hey, it's my way or the highway. There's no negotiation here. I'm the one that makes this decision. That's not going to fly, when it comes to the way the NFL is doing things now. It's okay to be hard on negotiations and everything, but there has to be a negotiation. And apparently that's not something that's going down in Chicago. So yeah, somebody I feel like is going to give Fields the benefit of the doubt. Could it be the Colts? I have no idea. You ask most of the Colts fan base and they'd say hell no. Because they can't get over their Ohio State bias. They tell me that I have Ohio State bias, but yet they use the same Ohio State bias saying that no Ohio State quarterback ever does well in the NFL. But either way, let's go to Indianapolis. It's a great segue. Reports coming out. I know Peter King mentioned this, and a couple other NFL rumor pages are mentioning this. So we know it's true, that there's trouble brewing in Indianapolis. Jim Irsay, the owner of the Colts, has been growing extremely impatient with head coach Frank Reich and GM Chris Ballard, saying that if there's not a turnaround at some point soon in the season, that most likely both of them could be gone. What's your take on this, Chase? I mean, obviously the Colts have started out slow again, and there's a very big glooming issue going on with this Colts team right now. We talked about it 2 weeks ago about which team we should be worried about, and I mentioned the Colts, and so far through all these teams, the Colts have had a lot of issues. What's your take on Frank Reich and Chris Ballard's job situation?
I think Frank Reich should have been fired after last season, just because of the way that he handled the meltdown. Because you had one game you guys had to win to secure your sixth seed.
2 games. I mean, there was it was the Raiders and the Jaguars. We could have won either one of those and we'd have been in the playoffs.
You could have, yes. But I'm just saying one of those games, and all you had to do is win one game, and you get that 6th seed in the playoffs, and you choked away both of them. Part of it's because of Wentz, yes, but I blame your coaching as well, because if you had better coaching, that team would not have fallen apart, and you would have beaten one of those 2 teams to make it into the playoffs. So I think Reich is mostly to blame on this, but I also do blame GM Chris Ballard. He is a fantastic GM when it comes to drafting talent, but he does not want to pull the trigger in free agency, making a big splash, spending a lot of money, like bringing in guys that would help. And he also does not want to pull the trigger, because I didn't know this until you said it at the start of the show before we started, that he wanted to pull the trigger on Justin Fields, but he didn't want to build with a rookie quarterback. That's what you're supposed to do in the NFL. You don't get guys like Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and so on and so forth being as good as they are without them being rookies first. Like, you've got to start with a rookie quarterback at some point in time. You can't just keep jumping from veteran to veteran, hoping one of them is going to revitalize their career or turn it around with your organization. It's not going to happen. So the fact that he's not willing to jump at a rookie quarterback and try to build the team around him, I'd say he has to go too. And I think that Jim Irsay has the right to be impatient when it comes to that kind of stuff, because he's been waiting for a while to, find the replacement for Andrew Luck.
Well, obviously, as somebody that's covered this team over the last 3 years, I definitely know a thing or two about what's going on inside the building every once in a while. I mean, I don't know it for a fact how impatient Jim Irsay is becoming, but I'm very, very positive that it's growing, because, Irsay said, this year that things need to change. Like, this team needs to change now, and we need to start winning these AFC South games. And Indianapolis hasn't been doing that. They've been losing all the games that they should be winning. And You know, it's the same thing every year. And that is where most of Colts Nation is fed up the most. It's not the fact that we're off to a slow start. Some teams start off slow, but in 3 of the last 5 years that Frank Reich has been the head coach of this team, so the majority of his seasons, the Colts start out after week 5 with a losing record. And that's not good. It puts you behind right from the get-go. This team has not won the division since Frank Reich has taken over. They have not won more than one playoff game since taking over. You know, all of these things, this team, and through all of the building that the Colts defense and offense has gone through with Ballard, you know, it's still not improving. Things are not changing. It's the same course every year, which points to coaching. Coaching, obviously, it doesn't matter how much Indianapolis has continued to build this roster. It has been the same result every year, which means that it's the coaching problem and coaching needs to be fixed. And that means Frank Reich needs to probably be gone. And like you said, when it comes to player evaluation, I think that Ballard is really tremendous at evaluating talent in the draft. I think he does an amazing job with that, especially with the with the guys that he has. But you're right, like the free agent stuff, it hasn't been big enough. And, you know, it's time to start going in a different direction. You have to be more aggressive in the draft. You have to be more aggressive in free agency. The times of sitting back and hoping things go your way, that's just not working for this team anymore. And who knows, maybe Ballard does actually know what he's doing, and maybe just we need a new coach to bring a new dynamic to this team, because you know, it like I said before, it's been the same thing every year. We always start slow, and that is exactly the problem with coaching. If you're starting out slow every single year, there's only been one time in Coach Reich's tenure that through week 5, he has had a winning record. Only one time. I mean, that's just, that doesn't work. Like the elite teams of today's NFL, they don't start the years like that. The well-coached teams, they don't start their years like that. They start every single year either 500 or going above it. And that just shows the Colts are a average team. And I'm tired of being average. I want to be above average to elite. I want to be good. I want my team to actually win games, the games that they're supposed to. I'm sick and tired of going into Jacksonville every year and losing. I'm sick and tired of losing our first game of the year every single year. Frank Reich has never won the
Welcome to my world.
They haven't won a season opener yet with him as the head coach. And, you know, it's just things need to change. I know something will, unless the Colts get to the playoffs somehow and they actually do end up winning multiple playoff games, nothing's going to change that. So, and then they got a game Thursday. So we'll see how they look. I mean, against another team that is also struggling, but then again, we just faced a team Sunday that was struggling, and they looked really good against us. You know, that's the 4th straight loss in a row, Chase, that the Titans have beaten Indianapolis in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I kind of figured.
You have former Colts players saying this is an absolute embarrassment. Like that was never the case when they were here. Like Robert Mathis and some of these other boys, they're like, we used to run that shit. We used to run that division.
The Texans are as garbage as they are. Otherwise, you would be at the bottom of the division right now.
Yeah, it's bad. You have former Colts players saying that they can't recognize this Colts team right now. And that's very disturbing. Because, you know, Colts teams before the year 2016, Colts used to run the division. They ran the division for 15 years. That team, you had to go through the Colts to get to through the AFC South. They ran that division for years. And sure enough, now, I mean, the Colts are a field goal kick away from being the worst team in this whole division. And it's sad. It's truly, truly sad. So I'm pissed off about it. I could go forever. If I hadn't already lost my voice from doing about 5 different videos over the last 2 days explaining my hatred for what this team is doing right now. I hope Frank is gone, and I hope that, and if Ballard wants to keep his freaking job, then I hope that he adopts a different style of building this team, because it needs to be different. So
yeah, I mean, I really don't have much more to say about that, just because with everything that's going on with the Colts, you absolutely need to just start from scratch, get a new GM. Ed Dodds could take over and, be a great candidate for that. And then the one coaching candidate that I've got on here, we'll talk about later. Alex, you're going to love it too. We'll talk about him later. And I think that, if he continues to do such a great job, he could be a potential head coaching candidate. But moving on to one topic that I want to talk about is I want to talk about the Detroit Lions and whether or not they the best team in that division. Now, their record doesn't show that they are, but with how well that they've been playing over the past 4 weeks, they've been putting up like 30 points per game over the past 4 weeks, and it's been absolutely ridiculous. I mean, with just the small additions that they got this offseason, and they don't even have their other first-round draft pick in Jameson Williams yet. They're doing it, and the fact that Jared Goff is playing out of his mind for some reason, I still think that they do need another like rookie quarterback and, somebody to help elevate that team even more. But, is it too early to say that they could have the potential to be the best team in the division? Because, if you look at all of the opponents that they played, they lost by a field goal to the Eagles. They lost by they should have beaten the Minnesota Vikings. Definitely should have won that game. Their defense blew it in the end. And then they are a field goal away from beating the Seattle Seahawks. And Jared Goff was without Amon-Ra St. Brown this past week, DeAndre Swift this past week, DJ Chark this past week. And I'll tell you what.
They scored 45.
Yeah, and they still scored 45 with that roster that they have. It's absolutely insane. TJ Hawkinson put up like 2 touchdowns and 145 yards and was playing out of his freaking mind. Now, and you know what I'm hearing from Lions fans? They're like, if Dan Campbell has a bad season and does not win, and he only wins about 4 or 5 games or even like 6 or 7 games, they want him out as the head coach. I'm like, are you shitting me? This is a team that, with Dan Campbell last year was fighting tooth and nail for this man and never gave up at all until they won a game, and they finally did. And are you kidding me? Like this, they're playing for this man like he just won, or like he just came back from the Vietnam War with the freaking Purple Heart. Like, come on. Why do you want this man out of there? Like, it's not the Lions. It's not a Lions issue, and it's not a coaching issue. It's a defensive falling apart issue. Like, the defensive coordinator needs to step up, needs to play and like have his guys play better and do that. But do you think that the Lions have the potential to be the best team in this division?
Well, I mean, it's blatantly obvious that the Vikings right now, even though their offense seems to be working things out, the Vikings are still kind of and obviously with the way Chicago is right now, they're not great. The one thing that definitely I can't stand the Campbell slander. Yeah, neither can we. I'll say this, that with the Detroit Lions the way they are right now, they're scoring the most points of any team in the NFL right now. I mean, they're averaging 35 points a game against teams. I mean, it's incredible what they're doing. And, I mean, it's incredible as well that they're doing it, and they did it this last weekend without their 2 best weapons, without DeAndre Swift, who was at that moment in time, I think was actually one of, if not the highest rushing totals in the NFL going into that week. and then Amon-Ra St. Brown, who has just been lighting it up, right? Like they did that still in spite of everything else going on. And, Jared Goff is still the same quarterback, but yet they're still putting up better numbers. Like, I mean, I don't even think you need to change anything with the quarterback right now. This OC that you have right here, he has figured out a way to get Jared Goff and this offense, which couldn't move the ball at all to start the year last year. They're the best offense in the NFL right now. They're better than the Bills. They're better than the Chiefs. I mean, that's incredible, the numbers they're putting up. Obviously, their defense is struggling. Like, Jeff Okuda's been good, but outside of that, they're still giving up 38 points per game in their games as well. That's why they're losing, right? I mean, it's incredible that they're putting up these points, but yet they're still 1-3. That's the only thing that they got going for them, is the fact that they're scoring points like this. If they can figure out how to stop teams a few more times per game, and if their offense can continue to score at the rate that it is, then yes, they absolutely have a chance to beat the Green Bay Packers for the front of this division, even with the fact that they're still 1-3. There's still a really great chance for them to have a chance at doing that. Obviously, the division still runs through Green Bay at this moment, but I mean, they keep putting those numbers up. I feel like at some point, I mean, if Green Bay doesn't get started, then, the Lions can figure it out. I mean, I'm impressed with what they've done despite their record.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, Alex obviously is a Lions fan, so he's happy we're talking about this. But no, like, I agree with him. I think they do need another QB. I don't think that Goff is the answer. We've seen Goff's ceiling, and his potential is the Super Bowl. But I think that if they brought in a greater guy like CJ Stroud, that is a guy that could elevate this team tenfold and start winning those tough games, start winning those close matchups, and potentially take you over the edge. And, I want to play this video for you guys because I thought it was very funny.
Aiden Hutchinson sucks. Aiden Hutchinson was bad in college. He played a great game against Ohio State. And you said, okay, we're going to make him a first-round pick. And we're going to make him the number 2 overall pick. Yeah, he was a first-round pick before the Ohio State game. But was he a top 10 pick? Probably not. You don't draft a player off of one good game, which, granted, was the best game of his life, but he sucked against Georgia. And if you were an NFL scout in the biggest game of your life against an NFL O-line and you suck that bad, how are you an NFL scout when you look at Aiden Hutchinson and you say, I want him? Aiden Hutchinson sucks.
So what I
think he's like 4th in the NFL right now in QB pressures.
Yes.
Like,
I mean, what I have to say to that is, all of these people are sitting here, slandering Aiden Hutchinson. It's like, dude, this dude gets double teamed more than any other defensive end, except for Myles Garrett and Nick Bosa. Those are the only other 2 that gets double teamed more. The Lions have nobody on their defensive line to help relieve the pressure off of him, and he's still getting to the quarterback and getting pressures and getting sacks. He may not be getting the sack production and getting the numbers that you want, but he's still making plays and making shit happen. I mean, what do you expect for the only defensive lineman that they've got that's actually, giving a damn and making stuff happen?
Absolutely agree. I mean, shout out to Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Lions. I mean, he has got this team going on all cylinders right now offensively. Would not be surprised if Ben Johnson is the first person to be named as a head coach somewhere next year.
That's what I was gonna say,
yeah.
Derek.
And then there's 2 more guys that I would say that are big candidates right off the bat as well. I think DeMarco, the defensive coordinator for the 49ers, will also be the next one. The 49ers defense right now is the number 1 defense in the NFL at this moment in time.
I thought the Bucs were.
No, it's when you look at it from points allowed, sack production, and completion percentage, the San Francisco 49ers are number 1 and 2 in all of that. When you talk about total yardage per se, the Buccaneers were there, but then they played they played the Chiefs this last week and got dropped a ton because of the amount of yardage they gave up. So right now the Buccaneers are number 2 and the 49ers are number 1. So he might end up being another one. I mean, he has that defense going flying right now. And then on top of it, I think the other one that we could see is Ken Dorsey, the OC from the Buffalo Bills right now. I mean, it's no question that obviously the Buffalo Bills offense was really good to start, but he has them playing very effectively right now. Their stats and the way that they're running it is through the roof right now with Ken Dorsey. So people are always looking for these OCs that change the dynamic of offenses, whether it be the Lions, who their offense wasn't good and now they're amazing, or Ken Dorsey, whose offense was already good, but now he's just made it even better, is another thing that definitely is appealing to people. Or like DeMarco, who, you know, took a defense that was already good and now is making them the best in the business. So, you know, those are a couple more guys that I think could get jobs.
No, I totally agree. And the one guy that I had on here was Ben Johnson. I think that he will be the first guy to get coaching offers if he keeps this up with the Lions. Like, if their offense continues to score as much as they are by the end of the season, he will be probably the first coaching candidate to be offered a head coaching position, and so on. Like, Ben Johnson has changed this Lions offense around, and I wouldn't be shocked. Another guy that I am really shocked that he's not taken a job yet. I don't know if it's because he's not ready and doesn't want to, or it's because, you know, he hasn't been offered it, but that's Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, people have been having that same question for years now. I mean, I find it hilarious because it's
he's doing this without Tyreek Hill. Like, look at what he's doing.
Yeah, I know. It's really odd because, like, people always want to keep bringing the race factor into it when I don't think that's the issue. I think it's just the simple fact that there's either something is going on inside that Chiefs locker room that people actually know, like maybe Bieniemy doesn't actually like contribute as much to the offense as what we previously thought. Maybe it's more Andy Reid than what we originally thought. And then there was the LaShawn McCoy thing. There's the LaShawn McCoy thing where he said that, you know, Bieniemy really doesn't contribute that much to the offense. People just think he does. I don't know. I don't know at this point. I mean, Bieniemy, his name has been brought up over the last 3 years, every single time the coaching cycle goes through, but yet it's never signed anywhere. I keep telling people just because he just wants to stay with Kansas City. Like, I mean, it's not that hard. Like, it's not that hard to think if there's job opportunities out there, then I mean, he would have taken one by now. But
maybe they're not offering him the job
until it's either the right decision for him, or he just feels that being the OC of the Kansas City Chiefs is where he wants to be right now.
I mean, that could be, but like maybe nobody's offering him the job either. Like,
I can't see that happening. I can't see it. I would love to know why. If that's true, I'd love to know why. Because, I mean, everyone keeps hyping him up. Everyone keeps saying how great he is. But yet, like, you're telling me, especially the incentive, I hate to bring the race factor into it, but it's the truth. The incentive for another black man to be a head coach in this league, that's what the NFL and, like, the media especially really wants to have happen. But yet, for some reason, he's just not getting it. So, like, clubs are more incentivized to hire black coaches. And yet you're telling me there's not one like club anywhere in the NFL that said, we're going to give this guy a chance. There has to be either he doesn't want to leave, or there's something going on in that building that everyone knows that we don't know that's keeping Bieniemy from actually getting a job somewhere.
I mean, it could be, but like, here's the thing. You know, Bieniemy, Leftwich, Flores, all three are qualified to be head coaching candidates. All three of their names have been thrown around several different times, and all three of them have been denied head coaching positions because of many reasons. I don't know why, But the thing is, Byron Leftwich was, linked to the Jags job. He was linked to the Giants job. He was linked to so many. And with how good of an offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich has been, with how good of a head coach Brian Flores was, he had 2 winning seasons with the Miami Dolphins, and then they fire him. And then with how good Eric Bieniemy's been with Kansas City, and they still don't have a job, that just baffles me. It just goes to show you that these owners don't care about how successful these black coaches are. The only team that has taken a chance on a black head coach and has had success is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're the only ones.
Well, I mean, the success of the black coach is completely different than taking a chance on him. I mean, we've seen a bunch of black coaches in this league not, do a good job. And then unfortunately, there's been times when, I bring this argument back all the time of what the Colts did to Jim Caldwell. I mean, I hated what they did to Jim Caldwell. That man went to the playoffs that year and had the team win 11 games, and he still got canned.
Alex knows the pain about Jim Caldwell.
Yeah, it's like, man, like I didn't understand it. It was terrible. It was a bad decision. But I don't understand why Bieniemy doesn't have a job yet. I think that me personally, I just don't think he actually wants to be a head coach. I truly just don't think so. I think everyone else thinks he wants to be a head coach, but I don't think he actually wants to be a head coach.
I don't know. Not from what we've heard from Andy Reid. Andy Reid came out and said that, this man wants to be a head coach. He's ready. He's learned a lot. And he's like, he said himself, it's kind of shocking that nobody's taken a chance on him yet and made him a head coach. But I think that if not this year, definitely next year, he will be a hot commodity for head coaching. But let's transition into, okay, we've picked guys who we think are going to be the candidates to be head coach. Let's see who we think, other than Matt Rule and Frank Reich. Derek, name your top 6 or 7 head coaches that you have a feeling could be fired or on the hot seat, and then have 1 or 2 surprising ones that they might throw out there.
Well, I don't know if I can give all of those. I would definitely say this, that, I mean, I'll just look at it from the firing odds per se. Matt Rule, obviously, Nathaniel Hackett. I would even go as far as to say Frank Reich. I've said that before. Josh McDaniels is another one I definitely could see.
Really?
I mean, they're 1-3, dude. They barely squeaked out
first year's
win
against coach.
Yeah, I understand that, but Josh McDaniels, I mean, he had a closed door meeting with the GM and the owner after their 3rd straight loss to open the season. There was high expectations for this team. You have the best wide receiver in the NFL, the 3rd best tight end in the NFL, a potential top 10 quarterback, and a potential top 10 running back, and you have some studs on that defensive line, and you're telling me that your team can only average 19, 20 points a game, and you can't win games. So obviously, what this team, and with the way they were losing, which was they were melting down in games late, at the end of the day, that comes down to coaching in a lot of ways, and it's very clear that the last time Josh McDaniels was a head coach, he got canned because he wasn't very good at his job. So at the end of the day, I think that Josh McDaniels, if the Raiders don't start showing what they were promising for the Raiders to do, they're spending a lot of freaking money on this roster. They're paying Darren Waller $14 million a year. They're paying Devontae Adams $30 million a year. You're paying Derek Carr $25-30 million a year. You've got some big boys on that side. So the fact that this team doesn't look good at all is a very concerning issue for me. And I definitely think that if they only win 6 or 7 games this year, then yeah, Josh McDaniels might need to go, because I was never high on him to begin with. I don't see really any others at the moment. I'd see names like, I can't believe somebody has Dan Campbell as a firing odd on here.
So
Like, it's so stupid. There's no way in hell that Mike Tomlin would get fired. Mike Tomlin, if he has a losing season this year, would be the first time in 16 years that man's had a losing record. There's no way that the Steelers get rid of him. I don't think Lovie Smith gets fired right off the bat. I think that they make things better. I mean, I'm sure you probably will mention Stefanski at some point, but that's really all the names that I can think of.
I got a few. Obviously, Matt Rule. I could see Matt Eberflus being gone out of Chicago, especially if things don't pan out with the way that they expected him to. But we'll have to wait and see what Ryan Poles does there. I could definitely see Frank Reich getting fired, especially if the Colts continue the way that they are. That's 3 right there. Stefanski, like I said earlier, he is the winningest head coach the Browns have had in the past 5 years. If you combine all of the wins that the Browns head coaches have had in the past 5 years, they don't come close to Stefanski. And the thing is, people want to fire him because of the way that he's, calling the plays and managing the clock and blah, blah, blah. But this dude he come in here, coach of the year. He went 11-5, took you to the playoffs. Obviously didn't win a playoff game because he wasn't the coach the time we won that game. But like a lot of Browns fans are pissed off at him and want him gone. It's just like, are you wanting mediocrity to come back in and not like have success? So I don't know. If he leads us out of the playoff hunt and does not make it to where we are in it by the end of the season or even in the playoffs, I could see him getting fired, but we'll have to wait and see. So he's kind of like a on the fence type guy. I could see Brandon Staley being out in Los Angeles. I do not see the Chargers keeping him around this year, especially if they don't make the playoffs. If Justin Herbert starts regressing again, like people are thinking, and with how talented of a roster that team has, I could see Brandon Staley being out as the Chargers head coach. A shocking one, Mike McCarthy. I could see him getting fired because there's a lot of, speculation, a lot of talk that Jerry Jones wants Sean Payton to come out of retirement and coach the Cowboys. And Sean Payton's already said that there's only a handful of teams that he'd come out of retirement to coach.
Indianapolis.
So he said it himself on Colin Cowherd's show that he said he'd come out of retirement for only a handful of teams, and he did not mention what those teams were. So
I swear somewhere somebody said that he would do the Cowboys job. So
I think he said I think the Cowboys are in his mind, but I don't know what else he is thinking in terms of in terms of coaching. I could also see Pete Carroll leaving and getting fired. Obviously, they are still looking for another quarterback. They're looking to rebuild the team, but I think that they are going to want to go in another direction, starting off fresh with a young offensive mind, a young guy in there, and just completely revamp this whole team and this whole roster and figure out how it's going to be. Get out of here.
This man having to continue to get up and check on his dog.
Yes, because she is being ornery. Stay in there. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I really have no other coaching candidates. I mean, I could see maybe Kyle Shanahan getting fired if they do not make the playoffs this year. And that's probably pretty much it. Like, as far as guys that I think would get fired.
Yep.
So we'll have to wait and see. All right, so transitioning into the last topic before we get into our picks from last week and this week. In Washington, Ron Rivera is another coach I could see getting fired after this season.
Yeah.
In Washington, Carson Wentz has played very well his first game and then has played like crap the past 3 weeks. And there's a lot of speculation that Sam Howell might be on the brink of being the starter in Washington. What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know, man. seems really odd. I mean, you're paying Carson Wentz that money. I just don't know. Like, I mean, I think some of the issues that are going on are Carson Wentz, but then at the same time, I think that there's a lot of issues they have going on. Their offensive line's not great. Their defense is missing a couple big pieces. So at the end of the day, I mean, I just don't know if like this team was as good as what people thought it was going to be. I mean, I could have told people that from the get-go. I mean, the Commanders are not going to be good under Carson Wentz. I'll say this. I certainly hope he does keep playing, because the Colts need Carson Wentz to play 70% of the snaps this year in order to get that second round pick from the Commanders. So his ass better stay in there and play better, because
I hope they bench him.
We're going to lose out on that pick, bro.
I hope they bench him for Sam Howell.
No. All right. Give me my second rounder.
So Derek, I just forgot about this topic. You wanted to discuss it. You wanted to discuss Trevor Lawrence and Kenny Pickett. What about them?
Yeah, I mean, we heard, when we talked about these, I think we actually talked about this yesterday, both of these guys. Doug Peterson was asked about Trevor Lawrence on what his status of his play is with, turning the ball over 5 times against the Eagles. He said that they're hoping it's just a fluke, but right now we're not even entertaining the idea of taking him out. And when you talk about Kenny Pickett, we talked about, should he be the starter going forward? And literally a few hours after we ended stream, the Pittsburgh Steelers did announce that he is going to be the starter going forward. So that's pretty much assuming what I just said. Kenny Pickett, I saw a bunch of the film, and, some of the throws that he made, unfortunately, a couple of those were intercepted when it wasn't really his fault. But yeah, do you think that it's a smart idea for both of these teams going with the quarterbacks that they have right now?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the fact that people are even thinking of benching Trevor Lawrence is absolutely insane. It's ridiculous. Like, this dude, had one of the worst head coaches in the NFL last year, and, the locker room did not like him. The quarterback didn't like him. The team didn't like him. And, you come in, you bring a guy in like Doug Peterson that's able to transition this whole team around and make Trevor Lawrence play like the pick that everybody thought he would. Like, everybody thought that he'd play great. And looking at like his yardage, his completions, his completion percentage, he's got a 68.5% completion percentage. And, he's got the Jacksonville Jaguars playing great football over the first 4 weeks of the season. So I think that, the fumble issues that he had, it was raining over there and everything like that. I think Doug Peterson's going to coach Trevor to be more secure with the ball. And I think that everything's going to be just fine. I think that people are overreacting because, he was the generational talent and the best player to come out the draft since Andrew Luck. And I still think that he's got that capability. He's got the capability of being a top 10 quarterback. We'll just have to wait and see what he can do with Jacksonville and see if he can keep this going. But people are overreacting on Trevor Lawrence. And I think that with Kenny Pickett, it was the smart thing to do, putting Kenny Pickett in, because if you looked at the offense, it looked more revived. It looked more, promising with Kenny in there than what it did with Mitch. And George Pickens had more targets and yards than what he did previously with Mitch. So I think that, this offense is going to start looking better with Kenny Pickett than it did with Mitch. So we'll have to wait and see. But I think that they were both great and smart choices.
Yep, I agree with you. We can go on now.
Yes, Alex, they are night and day different than last year, and they are a much better team, and they are probably the best team in the AFC South at this moment. The Jags, so.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we'll move on to the picks for this week. Derek, do you have the records?
Yep, I do have the final records. So with this last week, I beat you by 1 game.
Alex, what we're doing is we're doing picks, and then we're keeping track each week to see who's ahead and who's behind. So
yep, I am just tallying up the final results through the last bit here for these weeks. So yeah, you are 35, 28, and 1, and I am 36, 27, and 1. So I have you beat by one game so far. You went 9 and 7 last week. I went 10 and 6. So very, very close. We'll talk about the games that we'll talk about a couple of the games real quick that you and I disagreed on. One of those being the Seattle Seahawks versus the Detroit Lions. You had the Lions winning this game, and I had the Seahawks pulling off the upset. I thought that Seattle, with the amount of pieces that they missed, that Detroit was missing, that they would have the advantage. Clearly, the missing of St. Brown and DeAndre Swift was not enough. Detroit was still doing whatever, but apparently Seattle just decided to have the biggest offensive day that they've had in a long, long time. What was your thoughts on that, quick?
Yeah, I'm sold on the Lions this year, man. Like, I'm really impressed with the way that their offense is going, impressed with how the team is. Like I said, they should not have lost the game against Minnesota. They had that in the bag, and then they fumbled it the last few minutes of the game, giving up, the last 14 points of the game in basically chunk time. So yeah, no, I'm really high on the Lions, and I'm going to pick them again this week, to win. So, it's really hard to go against them, especially with the way that their offense is clicking. If their defense can step up and put it together, I think that they have a shot of, taking that division.
And then the other one, the Jets over the Steelers. Obviously, the Steelers couldn't get anything going offensively again. Jets did just enough to win, winning that game. What was it, 24-20? Your thoughts on the Jets winning that game?
Yeah, I thought that, this Jets roster is really talented. People still think that they are the Jets of old. They still suck and everything. And, I think that this team, if they can continue to put the pieces together and continue to play like they are, this team is going to be a shocker for many people. And having Zach Wilson came back, he played really well, for him being his first game back. So, and Schittsburg just sucks. They got the Schittsburg Squealers with Mitch Trubisky playing. So, obviously they were going to be terrible when it came time to it. So I picked the Jets. And then going into the last one, I know what you're going to say. I picked the Commanders. I had faith in the Commanders last week, thinking that they would go into Dallas and actually have a chance to beat the Cowboys, but I was sadly mistaken.
Yep, I was going to bring that one up next. Yeah, the Cowboys versus Washington. Obviously, the Cowboys won 25-10. I picked the Cowboys to win in this one. You had the Commanders. Dallas has not lost a game yet since Cooper Rush has been the quarterback. We talked about that yesterday. So obviously some things going in our favor that way. And then we'll briefly touch on the Eagles and the Jaguars again. Jaguars had the early lead, but they lost. You had the Jaguars with the upset in that one. I did pick the Eagles to finish it. It was a close game, but in the end, the turnovers got the best of the Jaguars. So your thoughts on that game?
Like I said, 4 fumbles from Trevor Lawrence. Had he, kept his fumbles under control, even just 2 of them, I feel like they would have had a chance to win. But that was a very close game. Jags played really well. I was shocked with how good their defense held the Eagles and everything. So, if the Jags clean it up, they win that game. Let's hope they come back this week and rock it out and win this week. But I'm still riding with the Jags. So we'll have to wait and see.
They're the best team in the AFC South right now. So that's crazy to think about.
It's shocking that you're admitting that, but
I mean, I have to. It's clear. Cardinals and Panthers. You had the Cardinals in this game, and I chose the Panthers. I thought that the Panthers would pull it off, but nope, you had it right. Cardinals just end up squeaking it out against the Panthers. Your thoughts on that game?
Family Guy was filming in front of a live studio ostrich. Ha
So I feel like we're in a Family Guy skit right now.
ha!
Yeah, and that was pretty much the only other game that we need to talk about, because the rest of the games we were in agreement on. Let's just go ahead and go into week 5, shall we?
Starting off with Thursday night, you got the Indianapolis Colts and the Denver Broncos.
Yes, we do. Okay. Well, I guess I'll go first. I am going with the Broncos in this. Right now, the Colts offensive line is definitely atrocious. And with the defense of the Broncos, other than the exception of last week, they've been really good on defense and getting pressure and stopping the run. And right now, the Colts can do neither efficiently. And we don't know the status of Jonathan Taylor for Thursday's game. He said he wants to play and says that's the plan, but we're not sure yet on whether or not he's actually going to play. And the Colts are also missing Tyquan Lewis and Shaquille Leonard again for next week. So we're missing some key pieces on defense. I know Russell Wilson said he was banged up a little bit, but the expectation is that he's going to play. So I'm going with the Broncos here.
I'm going to go the opposite route. I'm going to actually, go with my gut and pick the Indianapolis Colts on this one.
I'll say this. It would be very Colts-like to win this game. It'd be very Colts-like to win this game. When a short week on the road, disappointing the entire fan base, and then going in and giving them some hope on winning against a worthless team. Yes, that would definitely be the Indianapolis Colts.
I shit you not. If they lose this week, I'm not picking them again.
I know you said that from before. Yeah. All right. Next game.
It'll be the 9:30 a.m. game on Sunday.
9:30 a.m. game between the Giants and the Packers. Who do you got?
I'm actually going with the Packers. I think that Packers defense is going to stop Saquon in his tracks. I think that they're going to be too much for Daniel Jones and the Giants. No matter how good Brian Daboll's got this Giants team playing with, they don't have a true threat at wide receiver because Galladay has not been living up to the potential that everybody
hasn't caught a ball yet.
Yeah.
He hasn't caught a ball this year.
Yeah, he's not living up to the potential everybody expected. And I think that connection with Romeo Doubs and A-Rod is, phenomenal. He stepped up stepped up against the Patriots and everything and played really well. So, and against the Bucks.
Yeah, and the Green Bay Packers can run the football with the best of them. And that's their bread and butter as well. So I'm going with the Packers here as well. There's even if Daniel Jones plays in that game, he's not healthy. So that also puts a stamper on that offense as well. So I think it's very clear that the Packers win this one. Steelers versus the Bills.
I'm going to go with the Bills.
I'm going to do the same because, the Steelers offense is in shambles right now. And the Bills, even with some of their injury problems, their defense is still pretty good. And even if the Steelers had TJ Watt, I would expect Josh Allen to find a way to get around it. Chargers versus the Browns.
I'm going to go with the Chargers.
I'm going to go with the Chargers.
I'm going to go with the Chargers. Like, I know that our run game is going to keep us in the game. And honestly, that's what kind of helped the Jags beat the Chargers as well. But, the Jags have their franchise quarterback. We have ours on suspension. So I would say that we have a chance of winning this game. It really just depends on the play of Justin Herbert and whether or not our defense can step up. But, the Chargers are too good. I'm going to go with the Chargers this week.
Yeah, I would have went with the Browns in this situation, but the Chargers are a little bit healthier now. I think they're going to have Keenan Allen and Justin Herbert back this week. I think they're going to have a few more options available than what the Jags had when they faced them. So yeah, I think the Chargers will win this by a slim margin. Jaguars versus the Texans.
You're not sorry, Alex. Don't say that. I'm going to go with the Jags. Obviously, the Texans are the worst team in the league right now. They are the only winless team in the league. So I'm going to go with the Jags.
Yep, I agree with you. Jags right now, it's very clear. Jaguars hoping to etch out another win and hopefully remain at the top of the division. The Chicago Bears versus the Minnesota Vikings.
I'm going to go with the Vikings. Obviously, the Bears are in shambles. They've got their only 2 wins that they're going to get for the year with the Giants and the Texans. So I'm going to go with the Vikings.
Okay. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going with the Vikings as well. Like you said, Chicago's in shambles. I just don't think it's going to work. The Detroit Lions versus the New England Patriots.
Considering that the Patriots are now down to Bailey Zappi as their quarterback, I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions because, they only put up 24 points on the Packers, and the Packers came out on top. If the Lions can continue their offensive streak and put up 30+ on the Patriots, they're going to win this game. I'm going to go with the Lions. And they're going to have Amon-Ra back this week too, so.
Yeah, that's true. I'll just say this. Green Bay obviously struggled a little bit at moving the ball from time to time. And I would say this. Zappi came in there and he came in on no notice and still was able to play very well against them. And for as bad as this Detroit Lions defense has been, this is all going to come down to coaching. And I think that Bill Belichick might have a thing or two up his sleeve here. So I'm going with the upset. I'm going New England to win this game. I think it'll be a great one. And I'm not disrespecting the Lions by saying it. I think it's just that the Patriots are itching for another win. And I think they're going to get this one. Seattle.
I said at the beginning of the year, Derek, that I had the Patriots picked to finish last in their division. I'm gonna stick with that.
I mean, even if they win, they're still. I think they're still dead last. They're still last, even if they win this game.
Yep,
they only have 2 wins. It's a battle of the 1 and 3 teams right now. So, Seattle Seahawks versus the Saints.
Both of them are bad. Both of them have quarterback issues. Geno's playing hot right now. I'm going to go with the Seahawks in this one.
Yeah. Normally I wouldn't pick the team that just won a miraculous game to be the way they are. But you're right. They are riding the hot hand right now, and it's just hard to pick the Saints right now because they're just a dumpster fire. They just don't. They're not doing anything right now. So I'm gonna go with the
all on coaching. It's all on coaching because I talked to a couple Saints fans. They're really saying they're like, oh, it's not the coaching. I was like, really? Because you guys got a better upgraded roster than you did last year, and Sean Payton coached 4 quarterbacks to a 9-8 record. So don't even.
Yep. Dolphins versus the Jets.
Because Tua is not in, I'm going with the Jets.
Okay.
I just think that they are riding the high off of beating the Steelers. Zach Wilson came back and played well his first game. Like he played really well, shockingly. And I just think that, they're gonna come back or come out there and shut down Tyreek. I think that they're gonna run the ball on them a lot, and their secondary is not as good as what they were in the past for the Dolphins. So I'm going to go with the Jets. Now, if Tua was in, I'd go with the Dolphins, but Tua's out. So I'm going to go with the Jets on this one.
I don't think the Jets defense is going to be able to do enough to slow down Tyreek and Waddle. I think as great as Sauce Gardner has been, I don't think he's going to be doing anything against Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill's a different animal. I look for.
I don't know. Eli Apple shut him down.
I understand that, but they also had a bunch of situations where, again, Teddy Bridgewater came into that game unannounced, unaware of what was going on, and had to just go out there and do it on a fly. Teddy Bridgewater is going to get a whole week of organizing with the game plan, being fully involved in getting a game plan set up to go against the Jets. I think the Dolphins rebound off of this. And I think that they're just going to have too many weapons for the Jets to be able to slow down completely. So I'm going with the Dolphins in this one. Atlanta Falcons versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I'm going to go with the Falcons.
Are you really?
I am going with the Falcons just because after watching this team this past week, they are a scrappy bunch of guys. They know how to run the football really well. Their offense is playing pretty good. And, you know, if they can exploit the Bucs defense, they have a shot of winning this game. So I'm going to go with the Falcons with the upset. It's a tough upset, but I'm going to go with the Falcons.
Okay. I'm probably going to be right there with you. Tampa Bay has just looked really odd. Right now, offensively, they're in a weird spot right now. You know, I actually changed my mind. I'm going to go with the Bucs in this one. The Bucs last week, yes, they were playing the Chiefs, but I felt like if you gave them any other opponent in that week, that things probably would have been different. So I'm going to go with the Bucs in that one, especially since they have home field. Next one, the Titans versus the Commanders.
I'm going to go with the Titans.
Yeah,
I went with the Commanders the past couple weeks, and they've let me down. I'm going to go with the Titans.
Yeah, I totally get you. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Titans as well. Freaking Cody's in here right now. What up, Cody?
Hey, way to jump in, Cody.
49ers versus the Panthers.
I'm going to go with the Niners. Like, you know, Baker's not been looking good with the Panthers. That organization's in shambles right now, and who knows if he's even going to start this next week. So, you know, with the way that organization's playing recently, I'm going to go. Wait, who was it? Panthers and who else?
Oh, Panthers, Bears, and Colts we were talking about.
No. I'm saying, like, who are they playing this week? The Panthers?
49ers.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the 49ers in this one.
Yeah, 49ers all the way. Defense is looking too good right now. Chase, can you call plays for Indy?
I could, but I actually want to take over Ballard's job and become the GM. So,
yeah, believe me. And Cody, man, if this guy gets in right here, then he could give us somewhat of an inside scoop on what might be going down inside the organization. So look at this guy to be our next GM.
I wish I had that opportunity.
Yeah. Okay. Eagles versus the Cardinals.
I'm gonna go Eagles. Eagles are too good at the moment. They've got a great offense. Nick Sirianni's got them playing out of their freaking mind offensively, and Jalen Hurts is looking like an MVP candidate for the first few weeks. And AJ Brown already came out and said that he loves this organization better than the Titans. So, you know, I'm gonna go with the Eagles in this one, but I wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not?
I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals come out on top on this one. I would not be surprised. That would be very Cardinal-esque.
And so here's the thing. So, did you know who was on the Manning cast last night?
Who?
Jalen Hurts.
Oh.
And we know the curse that when the quarterback goes onto the Manning cast, the next week, the majority of the time they lose. Now that they're the only undefeated team now, there's more pressure there. And the Cardinals are a weird, scrappy bunch when it comes to their offensive situation. I'm going with the Cardinals.
You're going with the Cardinals.
I'm going with the Cardinals because look, for some weird freaking reason, all the time, the quarterback that is on that Manning cast the week prior, they almost always lose. So I'm gonna
It
have
did
them lose.
happen with Josh Allen last year when the Jags played them.
Oh, it
You know,
happened several times.
It happened
It happened several times last year.
several times. I don't think that there was a time where a player went on there and then the next week his team did not lose. So
Yeah, I think it was like either once or twice, but every other time it happened. So I'm going with the Cardinals. If I lose by that pick, I lose by it. So what? At least I took the chance. The
I shit you not,
Cowboys-
Derek. If you win, the curse is real. The curse
Yeah,
is real.
if they win, the curse is absolutely real. The Cowboys versus the Rams.
I'm gonna go with the Cowboys, actually. You know, with the way that the Rams have been playing, Stafford's been looking like dog shit. No offense, Alex. Stafford's been looking like dog shit. And, you know, Cooper Rush has been lighting it up with the Cowboys. He has not lost since being the starter. So I'm going with the Cowboys.
Okay. That's a tough one for me. That is very tough. I mean, I said it recently. I mean, it's tough right now because the Cowboys, like you said, the Cowboys look like the better team. I mean, they're operating like the better team right now. You know what? I'll take the chance. Give me the Rams in this one. I think the
Ooh,
Rams.
We
I
are
think the-
opposite so much this week.
Yeah, which was funny because we started out like on the same page a lot, but yeah, literally, literally like 5 of the last 7 picks have all been different. So I will see what happens. I think the Cowboys have been doing really well, but I think the Rams defensively, the last time that the Rams played the Cowboys, Aaron Donald just absolutely destroyed their offensive line. I look for him to maybe try to do the same thing here. I'll go with the Rams in that regard.
The Rams have been disappointing for me the past few weeks. I've picked them the past couple of weeks and they've let me down. So I'm not gonna pick the Rams again this week.
Yeah, I feel you. I totally feel you on that. I mean, like I said, I think Cowboys can definitely win. With Cooper Rush playing the way that he is, I mean, the Cowboys are just not making big mistakes, and that's why they're winning. Bengals versus the Ravens.
I want both of them to lose. Is that possible?
Well, I mean, you could have them result in a tie. You could say that. You can if you can accurately pinpoint that one out.
Gosh, I want them to both lose so that way the Browns, if they somehow squeak out a win against the Chargers, they become in first place by themselves. But I'm gonna go with the Ravens in this one.
I'm gonna be the opposite again. I'm going with the Bengals. Listen. There's something about the Bengals playing the Ravens. It's extra motivation for Joe Burrow, and especially with Joe Burrow also getting the extra few days to rest, and for this Bengals team to come in a lot healthier than the Ravens, and a few more days of game planning. I think that it's just going to go a long way for them.
Yeah, and with the Ravens and that running back that they have, you know, in the backfield throwing the ball, it's going to be interesting. So,
listen, man. Hey, that running back's playing really freaking great right now. So, I mean, I wouldn't say nothing because he's right now could be one of the best quarterbacks in this season so far.
yeah, but he's also lost against two good opponents too. So.
Oh, yeah, because that was his fault that they gave up 45 points to the Dolphins. Yeah, because he plays defense, too.
But he had 2 quarters to come out and try to score and didn't do anything.
He had 400 yards of offense by himself and had 4 touchdowns. I don't want to hear it. He did not lose them that game.
2 quarters. He went from the second quarter on, they did not score points. You're telling me for 2 full quarters?
38 points. 38 points. You're telling me that it was his fault that Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill both had a combined 150 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns each in that game? That's Lamar's fault? No, it's not his fault.
But you're telling me that he couldn't even lead his team down the field to kick a fucking field goal in 2 quarters?
They were in the chance to win multiple times, Chase. The fact that the Dolphins have not scored that many points again since that incident happened tells me exactly everything I need to know. The Ravens are not as good of a team. Lamar's not on that team. That team doesn't win a game. It's at that point right now.
We'll
The
see.
Raiders versus the Chiefs, Monday Night Football.
I'm gonna go with the Chiefs.
Yes, so am I.
Like you can't pick the Raiders in this situation. They have
You can't. You absolutely can't. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this one, guys. Shout out to your buddy for being in here. Shout out to Cody for stopping by.
appreciate it, Cody. Appreciate it, Alex. Thank you.
Hopefully I win in our predictions. I need to increase this lead. But anyway, thank you all so much for tuning in. This is the Chasing Larger Sports Stories podcast. This is us signing out.